Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be honest about it and say, obviously, that we're here to review the defeat to Burnley. We are reacting live to some comments that are coming in with regards to Antonio Conte's future, to not scare anybody. So, that'll probably be the starting point. But if you're listening to the show for the first time, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on Audio Boom. We're across a range of different audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And also, unfortunately, we are live on YouTube. Not a night you want to be live on YouTube. I think every Spurs fan knew what was coming tonight before we kicked off. That is the nature of being a Spurs fan. I am joined by three great returning guests. First up, the last time he was on was the January window. How ironic, bearing in mind of the lack of depth we seem to have in this squad. Jamie Brown's back from the Daily Hotspur. Jay, how are you apart from what we've just watched?
I'm okay, Ricky. Obviously, again, I think we kind of all felt that this would be the case where we go and play fantastically at Manchester City and then we go and produce a performance like that. I don't think we should be too surprised because we know how poor this squad is. I mean, the Manchester City performance was just a huge shock, and maybe that just kind of showed how, Conte's obviously got a fantastic system where he can play against a certain team. But maybe when, he isn't, when we're playing a team and they play a different way, we've really struggled. And we've played a Burnley side who are very resilient, very hard to break down. And, we just clearly didn't have the players to do that. But as I said, I just think there's a real lack of quality in that squad. I don't think we should be too surprised by tonight's result because we know that there's too many subpar players in this team. So, yeah, hugely frustrating. But again, even though we were kind of expecting it, it's just it's incredibly painful to take, especially after the weekend result.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel it's what every single Spurs fan feared what was going to happen, wasn't it? Again, delighted to be joined by also two great returning guests. First up, lovely to always have him on. We've got the brilliant Leon Emiralli. Leon, lovely to have you here. Sorry to put you through this. Dear, therapy on the way. How are you? Lovely to have you back on the Last Word on Spurs.
Cheers, Ricky. Good to be here. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think echo what Jamie said. It's always a case of one step forward, two steps back with Spurs, isn't it? And I do think the system that we set up with, favours big playing against teams like Man City and teams like Burnley who sit back and defend deep. We just can't seem to break them down. We haven't got a plan B. So that's what worries me. But look, we're Spurs fans. We're used to it by now. We can't get too downhearted. We all knew it was coming. It's just so frustrating because top four was there for us, and now it looks far from being achievable. So a real shame. A real shame.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just gutting. I don't know what word I can sum up to use tonight. Just so frustrated by what we've just watched for the last 90 plus minutes and what's going on in the press conference. Kurt's asking what is going on in the press conference. Kurt, we're going to come on to that in just a second. Also, please have him back on the show. Always a pleasure to have him on. We've got the brilliant Jake Lambert. Jake, I know you're smiling. I know deep down under there's a lot of frustration and anger. Thank you so much for joining us. Bear in mind, we were speaking before the game, how painful it was to try and find a way to watch the game. Jake, how are you?
Yeah, what a waste of time that was. I think shout out to, is it NordVPN, who was sponsored by. I signed up for that, trying to get it all ready. Spent most of the day trying to sort it all out on my laptop, and then waste of time that was. I was threw the laptop out the window. I'm surprised I still got a laptop to do the podcast on. I don't think there's words to sort of summarise it, especially now we're sort of dealing with this extra shock of Conte and his comments. We're sort of, I don't know, it feels like it just seems all season, it seems like a little up and then we're straight back down again. We beat City right at the start. We were like, maybe something's going to happen. And then we won 3 games. We were like, maybe something's going to happen. And then we walked straight back down to earth again. Then we bring in Conte. I think it was all going to be amazing. And then here we are again.
Yeah, no, I
Sorry,
agree.
It's not very uplifting start. Sorry.
No, I agree. Listen, it is tough, and I think the hard thing at the moment is obviously when we do these shows live, we are reacting by second as to what is happening around Tottenham, and obviously at the moment, Antonio Conte is holding his press conference, and obviously friend of the show, Ali Gold, is just tweeting out essentially what Conte is saying. He says we are doing everything to change the situation, but it's not enough. 4 defeats out of 5 is not good enough. This doesn't happen to me. Maybe I'm not so good. Tottenham called me to change things, but I'm too honest. I could just take my salary, but I'm too honest. We've lost 4 out of 5 games. This is unacceptable. He goes on to say, in the last 5 games, we lost 4 games. I think no one deserves this type of situation, but this is the reality. I came in to improve the situation, but at the moment, I'm not so good to improve the situation. I'm not used to this type of situation, and I'm trying to change it, but I'm not. Jamie, massive words there from Antonio Conte. Massive words, which I think will send shockwaves to every single Spurs fan. We've got a game to review here, but we almost feel like we're reviewing Conte's immediate future at the club. Just what is going on at the moment? Should we be massively concerned over if he's got a future at the football club based on those comments?
Well, I think we've also seen, he's just walked away from a very good job at Inter Milan when he knew the standards weren't particularly high. And obviously it got to a point where they were trying to sell players and he didn't want to accept those standards being lowered. He obviously signed up for an 18-month contract at Spurs. So that suggested to me that, there could be that opportunity that if it got to a point where it was really bad, then maybe he would be happy to walk. And, 4 defeats on my last 5 is certainly a very worrying situation. I do think for Spurs fans as well, it's a bit unfair to be talking like this. I mean, a lot of it rings true, but, we kind of want our manager to be maybe trying to be a bit more positive, trying to show a bit more resolve or willingness to turn it around. I think there is a bit of a case where he is kind of a very emotional person, and he's kind of really shown that tonight. But I think it's a little bit unfair for the fans that he's going like this. In fairness, though, a lot of it is kind of what we know. I think we know the squad's not good enough, and Spurs were in a very difficult situation. But it just kind of compounds what he's been saying. And as I said, he's shown that he's a guy that will walk away from a bad situation, and maybe he might do that here at Spurs. But I just don't see what he's going to gain from coming out and making these sort of comments or really kicking up a fuss. I mean, the only maybe thing is that it's genuine and he does want to walk away. But maybe if he's kicking up a fuss because he wants the board to react, well, we're mid-season. There's we've just had the January transfer window pass us by. There's nothing that can be done. So I don't really understand kind of why he's what he's trying to get at here. And then of course we saw comments on the weekend. He was delighted after the Man City game, and it was kind of very much the opposite of what he was saying. So yes, it's very difficult to hear because we all want Conte to succeed. We all think he's a brilliant manager. He's obviously one of the top managers in the world. We're desperate for it to work, but yes, it's somewhat concerning for sure.
Yeah, Leon, let's come around to you. I mean, there is more breaking Conte press conference comments here, which is not the way I expected to start the show, but such is the nature of Last Word on Spurs. He says someone has to speak about the race for the top 4, but the reality from the last 4 games is we have to not fight for the relegation zone. I have ambition. I hate to lose. What's your immediate reaction, Leon, to this obviously post-match press conference from Conte? It sounds like, he's obviously very, very frustrated. We know this man is very emotional, and I think that's what we love about him. We saw the passionate side of him after the Man City game. But clearly he's distressed by Spurs' form. I think he's understanding the pain that we've felt for the last God knows how many years of being a Spurs fan. It's not easy. How do you assess these comments, and should we be concerned about his immediate future at the football club?
Well, look, I mean, it's unfolding, isn't it? I mean, we're talking as he speaks, but I think that it's difficult with Conte because he does blow hot and cold. I mean, he was giving it how much he loves the club after a win, and now we have a loss, and he's saying he's on the verge of walking out. So I find that frustrating. I also don't know, his some of his words get lost in translation. We saw that with the Sky Italia interview. His English isn't fantastic, so some words could get lost. Maybe he's not articulating himself in the way he feels. But look, he's a fantastic manager. We can't get to a point where he's on the verge of walking out because of whatever reason it might be. And if you look at our track record, we've had Pochettino, one of the best managers in the world. We've had Mourinho. Looking back, actually, was he all that bad when you consider what he achieved with us? And now we've got Conte, and you think three of the most elite managers in world football, and we're struggling to get a tune out of the team. And you've got to start looking at the personnel. How long can we go on just skipping from manager to manager without looking at the players and thinking, well, look, something's fundamentally wrong? Is it a psychological thing? Is it a I don't think it's a quality thing. I think we've got enough players in there that should be able to win games like Burnley. I think it's a psychological thing. I think it's a dynamic of the squad that's an issue, and it is worrying. It's worrying for all of us, I think.
Absolutely. Jake, coming over to you. Again, I've got to be honest with you. Sam Matterface is a journalist that I know splits opinion. So again, it depends how you want to take this, if it's with a pinch of salt. Sam Matterface has simply commented and said, the way Conte just spoke to me clearly suggests that he was going to quit as Spurs manager. Now, I mean, again, as we've seen from the comments that we read out from Alistair Gold, there's comments here from the Evening Standard that he's highly emotional. It's straight after a game. A microphone has been shoved in his face. Should we be massively concerned, Jake, right now, or do we just need to let this play out until the morning? Because, I mean, at the moment, you feel... I'm terrified to go to bed tonight in terms of what I'm going to wake up to. That Spurs statement that we know with the famous... Jay, you know what I'm talking about? That almost that cockerel that kind of goes horizontal. And that statement that comes out. I mean, is it at that point, Jake, already? He's just beaten Man City 4 days ago.
As Jamie was saying, he's very emotional. He's very much on the surface. And what we have to remember is we lost 1-0 to Burnley. You know, it's not terrible. It's 1-0. It was wet. It was a tough game. We saw Bentancur slip. We saw players slip in. And the games we lost, when we lost 2 in a week to Wolves and Southampton, then it was one of the games was similar. It was wet. It was horrible. And the other ones were Chelsea. And Chelsea's Chelsea. We just play how we play against Chelsea, which is sometimes good, but recently horrendous. Like, it's almost like we just sort of roll over. He's just emotional, I think. Surely it has to be that. And he's frustrated. I imagine he's got plenty of reason to be frustrated. But the thing is, I think there was a few times since he's come in where I think maybe you've been the same. We look at the lineup or the formation and we sort of go, well, if this was Nuno or Mourinho, we probably would have kicked off, but it's Conte, so we sort of trust it. But we have to sort of, I don't know, like, what confuses me is why we seem to be playing the same formation against the sort of all different opposition, no matter what's going on. And I think, like today, for example, when he finally decided that it'd be Bergwijn and Kulusevski to be the wing backs, I'm sort of go. I mean, you could have made that a lot earlier on, or even from the start. I mean, we're at Burnley. We should just be attacking. We should have full control of the game. He hasn't got the wing backs to play the way he wants to play, so that doesn't work. And you know, how bad does Son have to get before he's dropped for Bergwijn? And what does Bergwijn have to do to get chosen? So there's, you know, we can say, what is it as the players? And we know that sometimes the players don't have the fighting spirit. We know that the owners have made mistake after mistake after mistake. We know that some managers have made mistakes. And I think that Conte has to take a little bit of responsibility. It's not like he's just come into this club and he's suddenly cursed. You sort of go, he's also, you know, he's maybe sort of making the same mistake again and again and expecting different results. And when he did finally change something, that was against City, and it worked. I was quite disappointed by the lineup today, thinking Emerson Royale is just too defensive for what you want to achieve at Burnley.
There is more comments breaking from Conte. Jay, I just want to come around to you. So, I mean, it's obviously been described as a dramatic press conference where, again, for anyone joining us here on Last Word on Spurs, Conte says, maybe I'm not so good. And he suggests that he would need to speak to the club about the current situation. He went on to say, probably the key quote here is that I'm too honest to close my eyes. You understand, and you continue to say, okay, I want to finish the season in this way, and okay, my salary is good. I'm not this type of person. I have ambition. I mean, it's big words from Conte. I mean, again, for our watching audience on YouTube, for our listeners here at the moment, we're recording. It is 11:15 on the night we've just been beaten by Burnley. So again, there may be some update in the morning when you're listening to the show. But for right here, right now, these are massively concerning comments, Jay, with regards to a Spurs head coach that has beaten City 4 days ago. And where we are right now, it just feels that he is uncertain as to whether he's going to continue. This is obviously his key for Spurs. Harry Kane, we know, has seen a real upturn in form under Conte. You add to that, obviously, Kulusevski, who's a player that clearly Conte wanted to sign by what he said a couple of days ago. The same as Bentancur as well. There's just so much to this story at the moment that it's massively worrying. And listen, I'd be the first person to say, overlook the comments is something to worry about. I think the nature of those comments and how emotional he is and the way he speaks, it's very hard to switch off from that press conference and talk about the game because of what we're listening to and reading here from Conte.
Well, again, it does come down to, I think that we do need to maybe, everything's very raw. And of course, we are all humans. We all kind of all think the same thing. We all get very emotional after a match of football and we all kind of come out and say very reactionary things. Conte is clearly the same. As I said, he's a very emotional guy and he's obviously going to come out after, 10 minutes or so after the game, you shove a camera in front of his face, you put a mic in front of his face, and he's going to come out with sort of comments like that. Unfortunately, that's that just seems to be the kind of guy he is. It's obviously difficult to hear from Spurs fans, but I just find the weird thing is he obviously is kind of realizing now how big a job this is at Spurs. Again, I personally would say that a lot of it is down to a lack of quality. I just think that there are players in this team that. There's too many players in that team that aren't good enough, and then there's a lot of players that have just been there so long. We've had to rely on to be come in and change the game. Harry Winks, for example, obviously a guy who had a couple of good seasons with us, but we've known for the last couple of years that he's not quite good enough for Tottenham. But he's the guy that's having to be brought on. So there's so many issues with that squad, and I think that he's kind of realising that. Obviously, with the transfer window as well, we don't think he got quite what he wanted. I think that there were certainly other areas of that squad. Yes, of course, we got rid of some players, and that was great because they needed to go. We got in 2 good players, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done to this squad, and it has kind of left us short. And he would have come into this. The thing is, he needs to understand that he came into the club fully knowing that we're a club that aren't going to go massive in the transfer window. He took this job knowing that this squad is failed under several different managers. So I think he shouldn't be. I'm a bit frustrated with him that he's come out and is so critical of everything because he knew he needed to know that when he was coming into the club what type of club we are. There's lots of issues in the squad. There's a lack of in the transfer window. We're not a team that goes big, as I said. So, there is also need to be a bit of an understanding from him of the situation. But I do feel as though the comments are going to be very much blown out of proportion. Maybe rightfully so, because they're very extreme. But I just think kind of at the timing of the comments, given they're right after the match, given the character he is. So I am concerned by them, but I do think it's just the nature of the guy. He's a very emotional guy, as I said.
Leon, let's come around to you. I mean, I can confirm that press conference now has concluded. Part of the ending from Conte was there will be an assessment about the club, about me. The club has to make an assessment to understand which is the best solution. In this situation, the players are always the same. In this club, they change the coaches. I mean, it's big words from Conte. It's massive words there. And part of that does ring true. We do change the coaches. And a lot of those players have stayed the same. But, we made that conscious effort in January, as we know, to move quite a significant number of those players out to give him a squad that he felt was going to be good enough that there wouldn't be dissenting voices there and a squad that could genuinely challenge for the top 4. And 4 days ago, that became a possibility again. But 4 days later, as we've seen with Burnley, I hate to say it, it's the history of the Tottenham, isn't it? I don't want to say that phrase, but it's just really, really worrying. Just to again conclude on that press conference, Leon, anything you want to add on Conte's future, or is it just a case now of waiting and seeing what tomorrow morning brings?
Well, is he genuinely having an existential crisis with this? Because he said after the Man City game, this is the best group of players he's ever had. And now he's saying, "Oh, maybe I'm not that good as a coach." So maybe he's just genuinely thinking he's not cut out for a job like this. In which case, it would be very honest for him to come out and say he's not up to the job. That isn't the case. I'm sure we can all agree that isn't the case. And if he's making those comments, it is purely because he's emotional on the back of a tricky result. So look, if I was to put a bet on it now with you guys, I'd say he'll still be in the dugout for Leeds. But I think he wants. If I was him, I'd be looking at getting a proper transfer window, a summer transfer window under my belt. And I think most Spurs fans are in a situation where we aren't going to jump on his back, even if we finish outside of Europa League at this point. We aren't going to jump on his back, because we know the scale of the challenge. We know that the scale of the job he's got in his hands. Have a transfer window, see what Levy and Perisic come up with in the summer, and then assess. Because I just think it would be very bizarre for Conte to walk out so early. He says that they're a great group of players. Well, start trying to get a tune out of them. And I do think that it's right that he thinks about the different tactics he can play. Burnley's a different game to Man United, to Man City. Why is he playing the same formation and the same system? Because they both clearly present a different challenge. So he's got to start thinking maybe about how he can change things around a little bit.
Jake, just to conclude for you on that press conference, Joey comes in here and says, if Conte goes, and that has to be over for ENIC. We pay the highest season ticket prices as fans in the world, and yet they deliver nothing. I won't renew. Conte, just to, again, conclude on this press conference, is there anything, Jake, you want to add, or is it now just a case of waiting and seeing, as I said to Leon, what tomorrow morning brings? It's strong words from Conte. I'm sure that will send shockwaves to the board, as it has to us fans tonight. And obviously, it's not easy when you're doing a live show to have to react to a live press conference where the manager seems to be questioning his immediate future. Like Leon said there 4 days ago, these were apparently the best group of players he's worked with from a personal level. I mean, what does tomorrow morning bring, Jake? Should we just be waiting to see what it brings rather than trying to second guess?
Yeah, to be honest, when we lose like that, I always think, the last thing I want to see is the sort of the soundbite on Twitter, the tweet, set up by the players, the sound bites in the interviews. We must try harder, we pick ourselves up. And it gets boring and it gets tough because we hear it all the time. Maybe we're just hearing complete honesty and he's just saying what they think, but what they would never say. Maybe he's trying to scare the owners into actually doing something this time and showing along the way how close he and how easy he can sort of walk away from it all. Ultimately, we were so high 4 days ago, and now we're this. And then luckily, it's a midweek game, meaning we don't have to wait a week. We've got a game Saturday. I mean, we never really do well at 12:30, but it's Leeds, and they've let in 10 goals in a week. So, mind you, Dr. Tottenham will see you now, but maybe. It was just up again, and I don't know. I mean, as I say, it's not an embarrassing 3-0. I mean, it could have so easily been 2 with that miss, but it was 1-0. It was just teams. It's still a brand new team. Maybe that's when he realizes now. What, we're at Leeds. Leeds are chaos. They could be anything. They seem to not know what they are. It's like a team of Paulinhos. You just don't know what you're going to get. I think, why don't we just go and attack? Because they can't defend and they basically can't particularly score. So maybe he learns, it's Kulusevski. Maybe he learns, actually, it's a game to drop Son and bring in Bergwijn. Yeah. Maybe he just learned from this mistake, which was turning up to play Burnley with a team that basically in the same sort of setup that didn't do brilliantly against Wolves and Southampton. Maybe this time he'll sort of learn. It was only 1-0. It was rubbish, but it was only 1-0.
Yeah. I just think maybe he just feels that the manner of the defeat and the nature of the team we've lost to, it obviously that plays a big pivotal factor into it. But again, guys, listen, we are live, so we will be bringing you instant reaction if there's anything further on Antonio Conte's future. Sorry, Jake, go for it.
Did he not? I'd have to check this. I remember when he first signed for Chelsea, I was looking at their sort of fixtures and their results and how he got. Sorry, when he signed for Tottenham, I went back to look at his Chelsea. Did he not lose to Burnley with his first game in charge?
I think he may well have done. Yeah, I think possibly we'll have to give that a Google. I can see Jamie's already looking for us, so we'll try and find that out for you. But again, I mean, like I say, for anyone joining us right now, obviously Antonio Conte's future currently seems to be up in the air. Again, as we're recording live, we'll bring you instant reaction if there's anything further, but we can confirm that press conference has now concluded. And if there's any further news you feel on Conte's future, it will likely be the morning, unless he literally is going straight back down to Hotspur Way to handing his resignation to Daniel Levy on a night where we've lost to Burnley. If ever you want to know what it's like supporting Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, tonight's the night. We lose to Burnley, the manager wants to go, And we're probably going to end up barricading him in somewhere so we can't hand in his resignation. And that's life as a Spurs fan. But we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners that are on audio. For our watching audience on YouTube, there's over nearly 800 of you watching us live. So thank you so much for all your support on obviously what is always a difficult evening when Spurs lose like that and a manager that tells us 4 days ago that he's working with some of the best players he's ever worked with, and then 4 days later wants to go. So that's life as a Spurs fan. So I want to say get used to it, but this crazy club, Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, in the space of 6 years, and here we are, and what are we trying to do to ourselves? But unfortunately, guys, I am going to have to put you through it. We are going to have to go through what we've just unfortunately witnessed over the past 90 minutes, which now seems probably a couple of days ago, Brendan, what we've gone through with Conte. Jay, let's start with you. I think this Burnley game is what every single Spurs fan feared, wasn't it? I mean, I don't think you'll see a better example of what it's like to be a Spurs fan over the course of 180 plus minutes from City to Burnley. This is exactly what we do, isn't it? I mean, can you put into words what we've watched tonight on the pitch rather than off it with Conte?
I don't know. It's just very strange. I was kind of on my show before the match. One of the things I was discussing is the different ways that the two teams that we played on the weekend, of course, Manchester City, and then of course today. One team sits very deep, and the other team, they're always going to constantly come at you and attack you, and that's going to leave a lot of gaps in behind and opportunities for Spurs to really play football. Against Burnley, they're a side that always tried to stop you from playing football, and I think that's why they've stayed in the division for so long, because a lot of the teams they play against, they always are able to find a way of stopping them from playing football. That's why they've typically become a very hard side to beat. And we were even in the form that Spurs have always been in, and obviously the whole Spursy thing, they are a very tough side to go and get a result against, because they always have a way of stopping teams from playing football. And unfortunately tonight, we just don't seem to have the answers for breaking teams down when they really try to cause us problems in forcing us to find different ways of breaking them down. So against Manchester City, we had lots of space, and that kind of played into our hands, really. We've got players who are fantastic on the counter-attack, who are great playing into space. But, today when we just didn't have that space, we just completely struggled. But, I think there's obviously some fantastic players in that team with, the likes of Kane, Son, but I think in around them, there are just too many poor players in there, unfortunately. And, Emerson Royale is obviously a real frustration. Especially when a system is so heavily reliant on wing backs. I mean, look, Conte's sides have always had fantastic fullbacks, but our fullbacks have always left a lot to be desired this season. So there's just so many weaknesses in this squad, and again, as well, it's another case we've struggled against a team who's proved they're very difficult to break down. So yeah, I just feel. I mean, the thing is, I actually feel quite confident of going to Leeds and getting a result, because we know the way they play. They're a side who do come out at you, and they'll leave space in behind. And I think that will maybe suit the way we play more. I think we'll have opportunities to maybe hit them on the counter. But against Burnley, against a team like Burnley who like to sit in and make it very difficult, we've just really, really struggled again.
Yeah. I think I would feel confident against Leeds if I knew if we've got a manager or not. That sounds crazy. I'm saying that on Last Word on Spurs, but that's the second time this season that I've said that. I've said this when we were obviously recording just after Man United, and obviously Nuno's future was up in the air. And I'm doing the same thing. I can't believe I'm doing the same about Antonio Conte live on Last Word on Spurs. But this club never ceases to amaze me. Leon, coming around to you, it was a huge win for Burnley. A real painful defeat for Spurs just 4 days after that win against City. I mean, Burnley, to be fair, they worked ever so hard, but Spurs, we just did not create enough, did we? I mean, you look at the side that, from an attacking perspective, there just wasn't enough guile to our play, just enough penetration, if I'm being honest with you. And Burnley, we always knew they were going to be a threat from set pieces. So you just, again, Conte must be tearing his hair out quite literally again tonight. The frustration in their shows, because don't give him a set piece. Don't give him an opportunity. What is your overall thoughts on the game itself, Leon, forgetting what's happened off the pitch in the last half hour, 45 minutes?
Yeah, well, look, Ricky, I mean, I'd love to know what the stat is as to how many points we've dropped as a result of set pieces, because, it's becoming a bit of a joke, and especially against teams like Burnley, like you say, that's where they're going to be dangerous. So that was disappointing, the nature of that defeat. I think it's worrying when you see the 5 at the back, 3 at the back, whatever you want to call it, against teams like Burnley, where we should be on the front foot and attacking. And for a little bit, I don't know whether you saw it as well, but Romero was playing almost as a kind of striker. And I thought, well, that's all well and good. And yeah, nice that we've got a plan B in that respect, but he's not a striker. He's actually our best centre-back. And then you look at Workhorst for Burnley, and I'm thinking someone like him as a plan B for these types of games when you're up against Burnley and you're up against a team that's sitting deep. Someone like him would have been advantageous for us. And Villa Llorente was back in the day. And you've got Kane who's dropping deep to try and create, but you haven't got a focal point for him to create for when he's playing as a slightly deeper role. So we need a plan B. That's what frustrated me in that game. We could have won it on another day. We could have won it. There were chances there, but we didn't. We should be putting teams like Burnley away, and we should have that flexibility to do so. And a plan B is needed.
I mean, Jake, coming over to you, we go and beat arguably one of the best teams in Europe, if not the world, in Man City. And then we lose to Burnley, who lost once in the last 12 games. I think they're 17th currently in the Premier League. And, this is actually a mad stat. Spurs have now lost as many Premier League games as Burnley this season and let in 3 more goals. I mean, that I just find astonishing, don't you?
Well, that's the thing, actually. I was just looking through then at other results that Burnley have had this season. And obviously, I mean, we're the only one of the, what you'd say, quote unquote, big clubs, I think, to have lost like this. But Chelsea was 1-1, Arsenal was 0-0, United 1-1, and Liverpool just the other day only beat them 1-0. And today, I mean, they got 6 against Leeds. So they're very good at what they do. They know how to play against these big clubs. I just think if we take away the games that happened before with Chelsea, Wolves, Southampton, Chelsea we lost, and Kane goal disallowed we shouldn't have. I just thought that Wolves and Southampton was our blip, and every team has a blip in a season, no matter what. We're just unlucky that basically because we've had a new manager and we've sort of got rid of some players, I felt maybe we're going to have 2 blips. This I just think you could look at as just a shock defeat. We weren't expecting. It could have easily been 0-0, in which case we've done the same as the other big clubs that have gone there, except for Liverpool. But that was 1-0. I just don't think it was. It was disappointing after the weekend, and we should have won, and we should have not lost. That's for sure. I just think we should wait and see what happens at the weekend. I mean, imagine what Conte said, that he's involved. Imagine how we all felt when that final whistle went, when we just sat there watching it. We were just thinking, this is terrible. We're frustrated. Yeah. If we had started recording a minute later, I don't think I'd be as calm as I was an hour later. So you know what I mean? He's always like this. He's like this, and that's great because it means that the day before the City game,
the man's real. He's honest. I don't deny that. I just think the problem is when you've got a club like Tottenham, and I speak honestly here, and a fan base like Spurs, that we're also very emotional fans. And listen, we love it when it's brilliant, like City, and we love those celebrations. But when it's like that is tonight, and you hear those post-match comments that you can't, unfortunately, hide away from tonight. I can't just deny that what has been said is not going to affect us on this show because they're big words when he says, I have to consider my future. I just think as fans that's not easy to deal with. And I think the problem is that we've already formed such a connection with this man, already such a great bond, and he's only been here 5 minutes. And we've had such an inconsistent run with him. And don't get me wrong, listen, we had the 9 games unbeaten in the Premier League, where I think we all agreed that, listen, it was a great run. But naturally, there's always a manager bounce generally when a new man comes in. Players want to show their all. And unfortunately, sometimes that after that period, you then see the reality of what you're dealing with. Then obviously we had the January window where he had the opportunity to move on several of those dissenting voices, which we did. And you want to now think that he's got a squad there that are going to run through brick walls for him. But tonight, for me, I don't think tonight's down to a lack of effort. I just think, coming over to you, Jay, we just don't seem to have the squad that's good enough to create opportunities when you're playing against a team that basically put 11 behind the ball and say, break us down. I mean, again, and this is the thing, the quality or lack of quality in that final third, it just takes Spurs further away from a top 4 spot. That it sounds mad. There's a top 4 spot available this season. It's still there. It's mental that it's still there for somebody. It might not be us. It probably shouldn't be us on what we're seeing at the moment. I mean, Jay, what can you say on the basis of the lack of creativity we've got at the moment in this team?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jake obviously just pointed out there the kind of the teams that have already struggled against them. I mean, you could go and say, Liverpool, they just about got the job done against them. They only won 1-0, and only Liverpool only managed to score 1 goal against them. So maybe there does need to be kind of some sort of balance there in terms of they are a side that unfortunately, yes, they're right near the bottom, but they are a side that are seem to be getting it right at the moment. They've of course got a point against Manchester United, as Jake said. So they're a side that just seem to be in form right now, and but then I do think there is also a case that we are missing that quality. I said earlier, we just have to always seem to have struggled when we're playing sides like this who sit deep and really make us work very hard to break them down. We just don't seem to have that sort of real creativity to do that, and I said there's so many areas of weakness. I said, but the fullbacks, of course, when you're bringing Harry Winks on as the guy, you're pinning your hopes on to kind of change the game. So there is, again, I do think there is that unfortunate lack of quality. But I do kind of, again, yes, with Burnley, there is obviously that they are a difficult side to play, but there is also that I think that performance was very concerning. So it wasn't like we were, constantly going at them or really.
We weren't. No, that's fair.
I think Burnley were actually very good, were very worthy winners tonight, unfortunately. So as much as I do think there's definitely that caveat that Burnley are a tough side to play, I think they were very worthy winners tonight. They were kind of they were more causing us issues than we caused them issues. So yeah, it was unfortunate. It was a very bad performance, but it's just so confusing to kind of really explain it after a performance like that on the weekend. It's just it's very, very difficult to kind of put your finger on what the issue is.
If someone said to me, "What Spurs as a definition?" I think you've seen that over those 2 games. I mean, that is what Spurs can do, and I can tell you that you are not Spurs tonight if you do not go into that Burnley game thinking we might get beat. And that is so sad, isn't it? This club, as far as we've come, when you look at the managers that we've had over the course of the last 5 to 6 years, and I'm so sorry, guys, to keep saying this, Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, and now Antonio Conte, and you're going into a game like Burnley that are in the relegation battle, and we're fearful of getting beat with the players that we've got. This should not be happening to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. It really shouldn't be, but it is. I mean, Leon, coming over to you. As I said, Burnley very well organised. Spurs, lack of guile, lack of creativity. And we know Kane can't do it all. But you do also feel with Spurs that if they had 2 competent wing-backs, that may have led to a breakthrough tonight. But, I mean, again, the lack of options to change it up. Plus, I have to add to that, if I'm being honest, and again, I want to be honest on this show, I thought Sonny was very ineffective on the night. As a whole, when you look at that, massive worrying concerns for the rest of the season, isn't it?
It is, and I think going back to the earlier point you were making, in that we put unnecessary pressure on ourselves because of the win from Man City. I think we won that game. We're talking as if top 4's back on. We're on cloud 9, and it was almost like it was a cup final. This Burnley game, in a way, we had to win it to cement it, and that pressure got to the players as it has done time and time again. But yeah, I mean, look, on a technical level, the wing backs that we saw tonight, Emerson Royal and Ryan Sessegnon, are not top 4 level, Champions League level wing backs. I think we can all agree on that. I think Emerson Royal actually could be. He's still a young lad. He's still 22. He's still learning the league. I don't think he's going to be a terrible player. But right now, we need better quality on that right wing back position. And I don't know for the life of me why in games like against Burnley, when we should be on the front foot, why he doesn't try Bergwijn there or even Lucas Moura there, in the way that he has a track record of turning wingers or more traditional wingers into wing backs. He did it with Victor Moses at Chelsea. He's done it with Perisic at Inter. I think they've got the makings. Bergwijn in particular, I think he's got the makings of a decent right wing back. So I'd like to see that. It can't be any worse than Emerson Royal. It can't be any worse than that. And I think on the left hand side, Sessegnon is the is the backup. Obviously, Reguilon, hopefully he's back for the Leeds game. I still think Reguilon's a really good player, a bit inconsistent, but is certainly a better option. So yeah, we need to upgrade those wings. The issue is still creativity for me in the midfield area. I think we only look dangerous, less so in this game, but we only look dangerous when Kane is in that pocket, sort of creating and spreading balls and doing what he does. So that's an issue for midfield. And yet Son, inconsistent this season. He's not been able to find a run of form that we're used to. So but that's probably just down to players around him not stepping up and not having the service. So yeah, there's some worrying signs in there, both from a mentality perspective, but also a technical perspective as well.
Jack, let's come over to you. I mean, listen, that this Burnley away game, the only way I can describe it for me, it's almost like a carbon copy of what it's been over the course of the last 3-4 seasons. It's always an ugly game. You have to battle hard, and you either sneak the win or you end up with a defeat like you see this evening. But I mean, it's very hard, and I'm trying my best to be rational here. Look at this side and think, where is the creativity? Where is the player that's going to pick that lock, that's going to, essentially get this team the opportunities that it needs? And again, I can't help but think in January, Philip Coutinho, it drives me insane that apparently Spurs, again, and hopefully Jamie will shut me down here, that apparently Spurs were offered the chance to sign him, turned up that opportunity, he went to Villa. I can't believe you're telling me a player of that nature, and listen, I know he's gone to Aston Villa to join Gerrard, but this is the chance to come to Tottenham to work with Antonio Conte. If you genuinely, Spurs are interested, my God, why are we not biting his hand off? You see tonight, no offence, that, Bentancur comes off. We bring Harry Winks on, and I'm not being rude to Harry Winks. I think you could just see the level in drop off of quality. I think all of us feared at half time that substitution was going to be made. We're in for a big second half if we don't score early. And my God, if we're going to concede, don't concede late, because it's going to be very hard to break down 11 men that are putting everybody behind the ball. I mean, is there any more words you can say, Jake, just in terms of that lack of creativity from Spurs?
Yeah, I think there was a point today when I mean, we all know this, that I think Kane is probably better in sort of everybody's position in front of the defenders. I don't think there's a player there who you wouldn't put Kane in that position. So when it comes to creativity, Kane drops back and he creates like he did for Son, that ball to Son against City. He can ping balls amazingly. So what confuses me is, for one, we need the creative midfielder. I don't know how we didn't get one. I don't know how we didn't get that, and a right wing back. I've got no idea. But the other thing is the second striker issue. And there's so many times we'll hear that no striker wants to come and be back up to Kane. I'm like, you don't have to be back up to Kane. You could play alongside him. Wouldn't you, as a striker, who wouldn't want to play alongside somebody who's going to drop back and ping you balls like that? We've got an issue where really our only realistic goal scorers are going to be Son and Kane. I don't know why, as a player, you wouldn't see that. Like when Bale came in and go, I could be on the right. I could be getting an assist from Kane, one of the best players in the world. So the backup striker issue, I can't fathom. I don't understand. Like me, for example, as a comedian, I get to support big names on tour. I get to go around with Michael McIntyre. I get to go around with these big acts. I would never go, oh no, I don't want to go and perform with them because I want to make sure I'm the best on every bill. Then I'm never going to get better. You have to sort of play with the best to make yourself better. So I can't, we've got this issue, and I just would love to, maybe it's an excuse that the club feed out as to why they haven't signed a second striker.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way Kane drops back, he's incredible creatively.
Yeah.
We've got him to do it. I just wish we had, and maybe when Son starts firing again, and maybe when Kulusevski gets a bit more confident, that he'll be able to ping balls down to them. I just think we've got it. If we had a second striker or creative midfielder, it would be so different. Yeah. And we can, if we go in the summer, that and a right wing back, it's not a massive fix. The only issue is we basically have about 2 players that can realistically score for us. That's not from a set piece, from a header, from a corner or a free kick. That's all we've really got. And it's Lucas. We love Lucas, and he's done amazingly. And Bergwijn can come and do it, but they're just not consistent enough. They're the only 2 consistent we've got. And when they blip, what do? There's no answer.
Yeah. No, I agree. Jason
Sorry to be
McGovern's...
negative.
No,
I
you're
usually
right.
try
No,
to be
obviously.
positive.
No, you're right. Jason McGovern, one of our own, is saying somewhere Matt Law is saying I told you so. I feel for Jace because, like I say, somewhere I know Jace, bless him, he watched that game on Sofa Sports, which was a stat-based app, and he just kept saying to us, "Why are we playing all these short corners?" Jace, do you know what? I wish I could give you an answer to that. I really could. I mean, bless him, to have to watch that on a stat app. I tell you, you're struggling.
Can I also-
Can I was going to say, I think it's a disgrace that this game was not on Sky Sports tonight. All three Premier League games
Could have been on
Sky
it could have been on the
Sports
crime channel the way that was going, or a horror
Well,
channel.
it could have been.
I'll be honest with you.
I think it's a disgrace that it wasn't shown. It should have been. But yeah, sorry, I have to say that.
Yeah, I mean, in one way, there'll be a lot of fans thinking it might be a blessing it wasn't shown. I mean, bearing in mind what came subsequently afterwards. I think just on that, I think the issue there was with TV coverage tonight was because of that game being rearranged.
Because there was Champions League matches, weren't there, on BT, and then obviously Champions League games on Sky Sports. But
what's Champions League, Jay? What is that anymore? What is that anymore, mate? I don't know.
I think it's some European competition. I've never heard of it, but yeah.
It's funny you bring that up, Jay, because that was kind of a segue into my next point. There'll be people out there saying, "Can we please now stop talking about the top four?" Because at this rate, we'll be lucky to finish maybe in the top 10 with the way Spurs are going. It's incredible to think that if I read you out these stats, Jay, and this baffles the mind, that Palace away, Arsenal away, West Ham away, Everton away, Southampton home and away, Wolves at home, Burnley away. We've got 2 points, just 2 points out of all those games, and we've now blown our games in hand. So Spurs can now only go above West Ham with the remaining games in hand and no longer Man United, Arsenal or Wolves.
Yeah. I do think, well, it's very difficult to say this now because obviously we're in an incredibly difficult patch. We're obviously 4 defeats in our last 5, but I think there is also that everyone in the top 4 race is hugely inconsistent. And obviously right now we're in a dip. I did say this a couple of games ago when we weren't so many defeats in, we hadn't just lost to Burnley, but I do think that every team is going to keep dipping and you just never know whether they're going to dip quite as extremely as we are dipping at the moment. Because obviously, as I said, 4 defeats from 5 is absolutely shocking, and the performances have also been really, really poor. I mean, I remember, in the Wolves match, I think you could have put any side in front of us. You could have put Norwich in front of us. You could have put any of the teams in the bottom 3 in front of us, and I think we still would have lost that game just based on our performance. So there is also a case of maybe we do need to have a bit of perspective that all the other teams in that top 4 race are struggling and they will continue to struggle. They've got tough games as well. Yes, we've got tough games, but the performances are just very worrying. And of course, again, 4 defeats from 5 is just truly shocking. And I think I saw the stats that were, we've now suffered as many defeats this season as Burnley. So.
Yeah.
I mean, that one is truly shocking. So I do think that there's a bit of perspective in terms of I think every team could pretty much kind of say the same thing. They've had some really awful dips, but yeah, ours at the moment is hugely concerning, as are the performances as well. So
yeah. Bless him on the screen here. I will find it. Will, I know you just asked me that question. Ricky, what's your honest opinion how you truly fix Tottenham Hotspur? And we get back to the pot cheers. I tell you, Will, go and get us a shrink, will you? Go and get us a shrink. Go and get us someone that's very highly skilled, medicated, that can give us some understanding. Because I've always said for years, Spurs need some kind of psychologist to understand just quite what is happening at this football club. I'm not going to say it for the third time of the managers that we've had here, but with those managers that we've had as a group, staggering how, as a football club,
just because I mean, for me, I know there's obviously the thing about the mentality, and again, there's always been for the last 20 or so years, we've always been labelled as Spursy. But for me, I always have said that kind of the owners are the ones that kind of set the mentality of the club. I think you can bring in any player, you can bring in any manager, and we've seen that. We've brought in kind of any manager. We've brought in serial winner supposedly in Jose Mourinho. We've brought in a serial winner in Antonio Conte. We've got an incredible young coach in Mauricio Pochettino, and we've brought in those top managers, and it still hasn't worked because I think ultimately it's the people at the top that kind of set that mentality. And I think so many times they've just been, they've kind of tried to do the very bare minimum in terms of trying to improve what's on the pitch. I think the mentality of the club is only going to change when they decide they're going to change. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen under them. But again, you look at a club like Chelsea, they have, I think a great example would be maybe Timo Werner. They spend a huge amount of money on him. He is not good enough, so they go in and bring in Romelu Lukaku. It's always, wanting to try and take it to the next level. Even when things, even when you've spent a great amount of money, you go again. Frank Lampard, he was, of course, a guy who they all loved. I think Chelsea fans are probably willing to stick by him. He was, his levels dropped and they got in Thomas Tuchel. So it's kind of decisions like that where I think ultimately the mentality of the club is never going to change until the owners do it. And that's why it does really pain me when everyone kind of, puts us with this Spursy tag, because ultimately, unfortunately, it's just the people at the top that have let us down so many times. But yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, Cracker's there, just come back from the game, bless him. Richard Cracknell, just back from the game. No lack of effort or will or effort, just simply too many, not good enough. And Jay, just on what you said there, lots of love coming in for you here. Ninon says to Jamie is so calm when I want to cry. I admire this self-control.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I do feel as though I've just become a bit immune to it, really. I think after so many years of just being so upset. I mean, do you know what? Honestly, I mean, maybe we are part of the problem as well, because I think we all kind of were expecting go to Man City, win, and then we're all kind of joking about it. So maybe there does need to be kind of a bit of, that needs to change from the supporters as well in terms of our mentality. But
it's so hard though, because I mean, listen, Phil agrees with you there, Jay. That says you're spitting facts. I mean, the hard thing is that as a fan, the worst thing is I think Spurs fans being given hope, because hope is a very dangerous element, isn't it? From what you've seen 4 days ago, when you're given that hope, when you go away to potential champions in Man City, you play like that, you win in the last second of a game, and you generally think you've got a chance, and then tonight happens. But a lot of people predicted tonight, didn't they?
I mean, do you know what this is going to be it's quite funny, but I was having an argument with one of my Portsmouth mates about who kind of supports, the most depressing club to support.
God, what a debate that is.
I'll say that, obviously, they're in a horrible, they've obviously had a horrible situation with financially, but the thing with Spurs is you get taken up so incredibly high at times. You go and beat Manchester City, and then the fall back down is just incredibly painful. I mean, Champions League final, fall back down. Some of the massive names that we tried to sign and it falls through. It's a tough club to support sometimes, I think, because take you up so high and then the fall's very painful.
Yeah, well, Will says there, this show is my mental health cleanser and therapy. Well, listen, I appreciate that. If you can let me know what's good for my mental health after doing this, feel free to chuck it in the comments and let me know. Jake, let's come around to you. I mean, Spurs, we've already lost 6 games in 2022, and we're still only in February. We've also 31 goals in 24 matches. For a club that's aiming a top 4, I mean, that simply isn't enough, is it, really? We've been honest about it now.
Have you not got any nicer stats for me? I've been through enough tonight.
Unfortunately, I haven't, Jake. I'm so sorry.
I think the issue is, as we're saying, it's the depth. I think there's too many players. I think we've all known it. Sometimes maybe with Delhi, obviously we didn't want to see him go, but we realised it was time. But there is a lot of players where, if they are just doing a job, just enough, they just stay. Lucas Moura. I mean, we go back to stats. Look at Lucas Moura. I love Lucas Moura, but if you look at his stats, sorry, I'm upstairs and my cat's just appeared at my window looking at me. So I think he's outside. So I've just seen my cat look through the window. I think he's trying to get in. I'm just hoping he doesn't try and make a jump up the window.
Let him in, or...
I'll go and let him in, and then I'll let him up to him. Sorry,
that's fine. We'll go to Leon next. I mean, I tell you, this is now what it is now to try and get out of doing this show. People are now trying to find cats in their place to go and get them out. I mean, listen, I credit Jake because
the oven on. I'm going to have to go.
Everyone's suddenly going. I don't blame.
I think it's my cat as well, actually, Ricky. I should probably go.
I think I'll be here by myself the way it's going. I mean, Leon, when I say those stats, I mean, again, losing 6 games in 2022, losing 4 of our last 5, where that includes, Southampton and Wolves in there. I mean, you don't even finish in the top 10, let alone top 4. I mean, do you think we have to just stop kidding?
Proof.
Evidence. There you go. Evidence from Jake. There is a cat existing. Leon, do we just have to be realistic that at the moment, on the basis of what we're seeing, the inconsistency from Spurs, it just simply isn't anywhere near top 4 form? Or do you look at that league and think, weirdly, we still have a chance because of the nature of the teams around us?
I don't think we've got a chance anymore. I think we had to win those games against Southampton, that game against Wolves tonight. That's 9 points dropped, and when you go for top four, you can't get rid of those. And it annoys me when we rock up at that stadium. On a Sunday, on a Saturday, we look around us, we think, this is incredible. This is the pinnacle of elite level sport. And then you look at what's going on the pitch, and you think this is diabolical. There is such a disconnect between what we've got as a club, what we think of ourselves as a club, and in a way, I'd rather we played in a rubbish little stadium and kept our ambitions in check with what the playing staff can essentially deliver, because it's so frustrating. And I just think the building blocks are there, the infrastructure's there. We are not going to be able to get what we want if we continue just playing the way we do and investing in the way we do, and the club's running the way it is. So we need to get a grip with it. And I really do think I'd rather see Jake's cat playing in that centre midfield role. Is probably more creative than what we've currently got. So look, we're
I guarantee there'll be more movement, Leon. I tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure there would be. I'm sure we could do this agility on the right wing back position as well. But anyway, look, we haven't got enough. We haven't got enough quality in that squad. We haven't got a strong enough mentality, and that's what's going to kill us.
Yeah, I'm also conscious that, we've got lots of people that are just arriving to listen to the show, watch the show, that have just come back from the game. So thank you ever so much. Just to confirm, we have in the first part of the show already discussed Antonio Conte's post-match press conference comments where, essentially he says that an assessment will have to be made over his future. Believe whatever you want to believe in terms of that and where that goes. Again, we're not going to need further news tonight on Antonio Conte, although this is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. So I say that. Don't be surprised if we do any news in the next couple of minutes, because it is the nature of Tottenham. But you'd imagine that any further news on the manager will probably end up coming tomorrow morning. So again, we're recording live, so we'll let you know if there's anything further in terms of Conte's future. But it's, again, those comments tonight will send shockwaves to the board. I think for us as fans, we started this, obviously, show with that immediate reaction to Conte's press conference. A very emotional Antonio Conte, frustrated by the situation. I think like all of us fans, as Rob says there, Conte is just feeling what it is like to be a Spurs fan, and no wonder he wants to get off now. The shame for us is we tried to get off the last 25 years, but and plus, I don't want to age Jamie, but listen, we're all still here, unfortunately, being put through what is this crazy train, as Lee McQueen calls it. Just to summarise, Jake, because obviously you have to run off there to go and protect the cat, but you won't get out of this top four question, unfortunately. Burnley, they've taken points off Arsenal, United, Wolves, West Ham in the last couple of months, which is pretty much, a lot of the clubs that are in the race for the top four. On average, we've seen in the last 3 seasons, it's around that 68-point mark they need to get you top four. It on average works out to about 1.78 points per game. You still feel there'll be lots of twists and turns to come between now and the end of the season. Is that it for you, Jake, or do you still retain some hope that Spurs can do it if Conte, it's the big if he is still here?
As another cat, I don't. Today's the first day when I thought, I don't think we're getting top four. And I've always thought we could do it. Something will happen, we'll do it, especially obviously after City. But I always thought Conte just got that winning mentality. And now I think this is the first time where I go, okay, maybe not. But however bad we are this season, it'll make us look even better next season. But I do think somebody said that thing of I think I just saw somebody say about we're the worst team to support. I think I might have just read it on Twitter. Someone said we're the worst team to support. And I think that's true, because just think if you're like, even if you're like, I hate to mention them, but if you're West Ham, they never win anything, and it's fine. So if they have a slightly good season where they sit in the top four for a while, they're very happy with that because they can remember what it was like to be in top four. If you're sort of Everton, Southampton, you sort of get praised when you manage to take down a giant, but ultimately no one's expecting you to. But the fans of other clubs will seem to like to enjoy our failure. So you go, well then, do you consider us a big club then? Because you're always talking about the fact of Tottenham have bottled it again, but they never say it about the other clubs. So we're seem to be the only team in the Premier League that is in this weird sort of limbo about, are we a big club or are we not? Because ultimately we're the best of the Everton and Southampton and everything, which is not high praise, but we sort of just sit us and Arsenal in this weird sort of limbo about which way is it going to go. And unfortunately, and I hate to mention them, Arsenal have at least had some sort of success. So we are, I think, right. At least the teams like Norwich, for example, at least they won something. So they get to go down to the Championship and be good for a season.
Whereas we just constantly suffer. I'll tell you, this is the microcosm of Tottenham. It is tricky. I mean, what we are going to do, I think, to put us out of our misery, we are going to go. It doesn't get any easier. Sorry, guys. We are going to go for our next break of the show, and when we come back, we're just going to briefly touch upon some of the player performances from that Burnley game, the story of the game, essentially. And then to put these guys through it even further, we've then got to look ahead to Leeds to come, which I'll be honest with you, we don't even know if we've got a manager in charge for that, the way this is going. So I've said that again for the second time this season on Last Word on Spurs. That's the nature of this season. I can't believe what I'm saying or what I'm seeing from Tottenham. That's the nature of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. So for our watching audience on YouTube, we are going to go for that next break. For our watching audience, we've got nearly 700 to 800 of you watching us live still on Last Word on Spurs as we approach nearly midnight. So thank you so much for all of your continued support. We appreciate it's not an easy night. We're all gutted. We're all frustrated. Listen, we love the football club. 4 days ago, you have that hope. 4 days later, need I say any more, eh? Right, let's go back round. Let's go to you, Leon, to start this next part. Obviously, team selection really dictates, you feel, the mood of Spurs Twitter. So, Antonio Conte named an unchanged Spurs team to take on Burnley. We knew ahead of the game that Oliver Skipp was yet to return after that groin injury, which was complicated also by an infection, we must add. Japhet Tanganga also remained out with a knee injury. Sergio Reguilon was back on the bench following his recovery from COVID, so you'd imagine he's not too far away now from a start. So that team read Lloris, Romero, Dyer, Davis, Emerson, Bentancur, Højbjerg, Sessegnon, Kulusevski, Kane and Son, and we had a bench of Austin Roden, Sanchez, Doherty, Reguilon, Scarlett, who replaced Harvey White. I must anyway, Harvey Winks then. See what the way Winks is playing, I'm not going to upgrade him. That was Harvey White, and then obviously we had Bergwijn on the bench as well as Lucas. Right, okay. Jake. Liam. Thoughts on that team? Is that what you were roughly expecting? Was you happy when that came out?
Yeah, I thought it would be difficult to drop anyone after the Man City game because we played so well. So yeah, I thought that was probably going to be the case, especially with the absentees. And yeah, I think we now know where we all know. We knew before the Man City game where the weaknesses were. It is on the wings and it is in the midfield. The midfield in terms of creativity. So I think that Højbjerg had a good game against City. I don't think he was good tonight, and I don't think he's been good in the other two losses against Wolves and Southampton. So I think he's out of form, and I think that Bentancur potentially being injured for Leeds. I don't know what his situation is, but that's worrying because he's looked bright, and then you've got the question of Kulusevski, who's a good player. Looked quite bright at times tonight, and I think he's got a good left foot on him. But is he direct enough? Does he offer enough difference that Mora does, for example? Is he a better option? I think maybe against Leeds when you're playing against a high line, maybe someone like Mora or Bergwijn is a better option on that side. But I think you couldn't change the team after Man City, but I think now there are a few players who we need to take a long hard look at. As to whether or not they should be involved for the rest of the season.
Also, Leon, just very quick. I mean, obviously, we're getting a lot of comments in terms of the formation being a frustration to some. Was you in favour of that formation tonight, or do you think you should have changed it, in your opinion?
I think you need to show flexibility. Man City are a million miles away from Burnley. They play a different style of football. They've got a different personnel, and I think it frustrates me that someone like Antonio Conte, who's clearly a world-class manager, doesn't have the flexibility in his locker to think, actually, I'm going to try something a bit different. I'm going to put an extra attacker up there. I'm going to stuff the midfield with. I'm going to put an extra man in the midfield. So frustrating that he's stuck with that. You don't need 5 defenders against Burnley. I don't think. I think we would have had a better chance of getting that goal if we had an extra attacker. So yeah, I would like to see more flexibility from him going forward if he sticks around.
God. That last comment, scarily, on if he sticks around. It's mental, isn't it, what we're talking about here? Jake, let's come over to you. I mean, listen, there's an early chance for Spurs in the first minutes. Kane looked to hit a ball across the box to Session, but it deflected by a Burnley leg that went wide of the post. I mean, I think, to be fair, Spurs, during that first half, I mean, chances were limited. Many will put that down to the weather. I know people will laugh about that. I mean, we saw it having an impact on Bentancur, that at one point went down after a real nasty slip, like doing a splits in opposite directions. But I think it's fair to say that first half alone, Jake, Burnley were really impressive. And I mean, again, without looking too dangerous, Spurs ended that first half. And I think we ended the game, if I'm not mistaken, without a shot on target. People might have to correct me there. I mean, I think that might be right, without a shot on target. But I mean, you felt Spurs were going to have to be brave. And they were going to have to also, Jake, they're going to have to beat that Burnley press, because I think it's an element of knowing when to be brave, when to almost fight up to the challenge. In that first half, I mean, I know second half we pushed, but for a first half display, when we've just beaten City, was you expecting more, Jake?
Definitely. Well, I was expecting more until I thought about all my experience as a Spurs fan. So I was sort of in limbo, but I was hoping for more. The problem is, I think it is that creativity that the issue with the wing backs, and the wing backs, I know Sessegnon is a natural wing back, but Emerson Rowe's certainly not. And he sometimes will just, instead of going with the flow of the game, it seems like a first time cross is exactly what it needs to ping the balls in to the box. And there was a time, I think Son had the ball, and I don't know how he didn't give a through ball to Kane. And people were saying he was looking down, but I was like, surely you can hear him. And surely, you know, after playing with Kane for that many seasons, he's going to be there and he's going to make sure he's ready for the ball. So that was a shame. Obviously, I'm not blaming Son for that. Well, I am, but I mean, you know, everyone makes mistakes in games, but it's just, that's the thing. There's no one to sort of pick that lock and make something sort of magic happen apart from Kane. Really, he seems to be the one to drop back and do most people's jobs for them. There were some points when he was out doing the wing backs jobs, I think, crossing the ball in, and that's why we need more options than Kane and Son to score. Kulusevski came close. I really like Kulusevski. I feel like the way I sort of could describe him is, if you look at someone like Ronaldo is sort of like a racehorse, and then like Kulusevski is like a workhorse. And it's not as pretty to look at, but it gets a job done.
Yeah, no, he worked hard tonight. Listen, I don't think you can fault his effort and commitment tonight. Yeah, I don't think you can fault his effort and commitment tonight. Listen, he's not Luis Diaz, as Jason said on the last show. He is what he, you know, he's not a bad player. I mean, again, we saw the coolness and calmness of his finish at the weekend against City. I agree on that. I mean, Jay, let's come over to you. You know, we saw Spurs obviously hit the crossbar early in that second half. It was Kane heading Son's free kick with, look at the back of his head, but I mean, you look at it in more detail, actually hit more of his neck and shoulder. And I must also, just to take upbridge to what I said, I mean, it was in the end, Spurs ended that game with 2 shots on target. So, excuse me, it was 2, not none. It felt, I'll be honest, watching it live, I was so engrossed with it, it felt like none. We had 2 on target, just to be clear, before I get battered over that. But essentially, Jay, Burnley taking a lead. Romero, who, to be fair, up until that point, had been absolutely excellent in the game. I got to say he's been faultless, but beaten at the back post by me, who headed home from a deep free kick. Listen, Jay, there's no doubt about it. Romero's class. Is there a concern about him aerially, Jay? Or are we looking at that too deeply?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, look, but we've always been quite weak from set pieces, and maybe there does need to be something that maybe that's something that needs to be addressed in the summer when we're looking for new players in terms of getting someone back in there. Because again, we've just so many times we conceded from set pieces, so that maybe does need to be an issue that kind of needs to be addressed. But look, Romero is obviously such a class player, and look, in that sort of game, that maybe we should have kind of been outside by that point, and maybe that shouldn't have needed to be an issue. Again, yes, Burnley are a difficult side to beat, and we've seen the teams go and struggle there. But look, as a side who has the ambitions that we do of really challenging for the top 4 and you know, maybe going for the title one day, it's just you know, we just didn't create enough chances, and so ultimately, you know, that they finally found that breakthrough. And again, I said it, I really felt they were very worthy winners tonight. Unfortunately, they were the ones always asking the questions of us, and you know, they eventually, you know, found the way through because they just had so many more chances than we did. So it's I just think they utterly deserved it tonight, unfortunately.
Leon, come around to you. Just in regards to Romero, there'll be some that maybe feels that he was unaware that me was coming in behind him, and it just felt like maybe his positioning was all wrong. Is that how you read the situation, or do you think it is just one of those where, again, set piece wise, Spurs are undone, and it's not just on Romero?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time I was on this podcast, Ricky, I spoke about Romero, and I wasn't entirely convinced in his first few games. And I think since then he's been on in really good form and looks like he's probably our best centre back. So I'm not gonna say he's at fault for that, because set pieces are Burnley's strong point, and they are very good at set pieces, and that mistakes happen from those types of scenarios. So. Look, I think Romero is a really good defender. I think he has to be in that three. I know I was just saying he should have gone at 4 at the back rather than 3 centre backs. But I do think Romero has to be in a 3. And I think he adds something to us. And I think over the years he'll be a fantastic player. So I'm quite happy with him. But Ben Davies probably needs to be an upgrade at left central back. I think he's done a good job, but again, is he top 4 Champions League level? Probably not. Dyer looks good, or looks good this season, but we know he's not the most consistent of defenders. So again, maybe it's the defence that needs looking at. I feel like every time we've discussed a position, we say we could do with an upgrade, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe that is the problem, that the squad needs an entire overhaul, because everywhere you look, there's room for improvement, and that's not great, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I must just say that essentially, just to be very clear on Romero, I think we're all recognising the guy's top class. I mean, I don't think you can even question when you look at our back line and listen, Dyer's come in and done well since he's done well over the last couple of games. I don't think he was massively at fault tonight. I mean, there's no doubt Romero is an upgrade on what we've got. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. I think he's a top class defender. I think it's just a question where airily, there's just been a couple of times where I have to, again, caveat this and say the guy's still getting used to a new league. He's only been back a very, very short amount of time. He's been thrust into playing a majority of games that really, I think it's unfair in a way that he's having to play all these games, because, I mean, you'd bed him in slowly, wouldn't you, Jay? But this is the nature of Tottenham. We haven't got the players, unfortunately, to cover him.
Absolutely. That's I think that's a very key point as well to note with Romero, is that he's literally just come back from 3 or 4 months off from a hamstring injury. You should never be rushing back a player like that who's had muscle injuries. You should be bedding a player back in, because they're very susceptible to happening again. And the fact that we've had to desperately rely on him to come in and try and save us and be that that third central defender is kind of says everything about it. But we just can't afford to drop him, because we just don't have the quality of options to rotate. So again, that's another issue where we just don't have that quality in the squad to be able to give a player like that a rest. And he does need a rest, because not only will he have the worry of maybe re-injuring himself, he's not going to be fully match fit. He's not played football for 3 or 4 months, so there's a lot of concern about Romero, and that's kind of why. And then he was off in some of the the Wolves match at times. Maybe didn't look himself, but I just don't think that I don't expect him to be fully fit right now and up to match speed. So yes, it's just it's a bad situation for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, coming over to you, Jake. Listen, I mean, on Romero, he kept on raiding forward tonight. He slid a shot wide in the first half. I mean, I must say, and I think I want to emphasise this point, he made an excellent challenge to stop Weghorst in the Spurs box midway through the second half of the game. There'll be reservations, of course, over the nature of the way Spurs conceded that goal. Do you have any concerns, Jake, over him airily, or do you just think, again, it's new league, got to give him time? He's a top-class defender, isn't he?
Yeah, he's incredible to watch. He's amazing. You sort of feel a bit bad about what he's sort of got around him, especially when I feel bad calling out players, but when it's some of those other players he's having to play with, you feel a bit bad. And that's the thing with Tottenham, is we'll have these stars. You could look at the team and you could go, well, we've got Hugo Lloris, you've got Romero now, and then you've got Son and Kane, and you'd go, the rest of them, they're stars. They're like world-class players. You just need more. There's always that lack of depth. All it takes is one player to get an injury, like at the minute without Skip. And we're wounded. You can tell. We just haven't quite got the depth of other teams. And there's reasons for it, of course. players are happily going to sit on the bench at City or United or even United still and Chelsea because they're big clubs, and more experienced players are going to be happy to sort of, like Thiago Silva, to go to Chelsea and understand they're not going to play every game, but they're at a club like Chelsea and they're probably going to win a bit more towards the end of their career. It's tough, I think, for players. I think, have been called out by Conte, I think, for buying a lot of young and up and coming players and building for the future. We go, well, that's really all. It's a bit like Vlahovic. Why would you come here if you're about to hit your peak? You're going to go somewhere and win something. So we get these players. Romero as well. Sorry, the point I was trying to make is Romero, he's incredible. And also he's only 23, which is amazing. I think he's phenomenal. He's only going to get better. And we are going to have him at his peak. And there's some players we're going to have for at the peak. We're probably going to get Bentancur at his peak. We're going to get Skip at his peak. We've done amazing with that. We've got Kane at his peak. But it's just, you need to get that balance right. And if we look back, that balance has worked in the past. When we ended up, look at that team we had. I know there's a Twitter account about people who mentioned that team during that season, but you look at the team that we had and it worked. We had a lot of players at their peak, and you sort of have to build towards it, and it needs patience. You just have to hope that Conte can speak. Sorry, I'm going back to this. I just wanted to say it earlier. You hope, because I think somebody said that you hope he doesn't rock the squad. You've got to hope that Conte's saying slightly different things to the squad than he's saying to the press.
Yep.
He's a very smart man. He's a very emotional man, very smart man. So we have to hope he's willing to be there for this build.
Yeah.
Because it's just the way we are. The limbo of who we are is the limbo we are when we attract players like this. Yeah. For me, Romero is amazing, but what we need is to be able to back that up and give him at least one top defender to play alongside, because he can't do it all. And otherwise, of course he's going to make a mistake. He's human, but we need that solid line, and you can't expect him to play alongside, as you say, Dyer's inconsistent. Someone like Sanchez Tanganga, he deserves us to spend another 50 million and get another defender to be alongside him.
Yeah,
sorry, I went off on a big tangent.
No, it's fine.
No,
it's important that I say lots of good points there. I mean, Dyer, to be fair to him, he defended well on the night. I mean, listen, he was trying to fight off Weghorst a lot aerially. I think he done the job that he was expected to do. Davis, to be fair, was solid on the left of the back three. Didn't do too much wrong. I mean, I think Emerson Royale is a player that at the moment, we'll come around to you, Leon. Sorry to pick on you for this. Royale, I mean, listen, defended well. He got himself into a couple of decent positions attacking-wise, but I just feel that, a lot of clubs know that final ball is just not quite there, and therefore they're happy to allow him to have it. I mean, you said, Leon, earlier that you feel that maybe in time with maybe Conte working with him, please God he's still here, that he can improve. He came off on the hour mark. Can't really make any reason for him not to come off, can we? I mean, it's just, do you feel generally that he can do more in time? Is there a player in there for you, given coaching?
Yeah, I think there is. I've seen glimpses of him, and I think he could actually be a decent player once he gets used to the league, once he gets used to the players around him. He's probably a player who's better in a four at the back. I think this is the issue. We've got round pegs in square holes, and you look throughout the squad, and that's happening.
Well, he was brought in as well. We must add, he was brought in as a right back for Nuno. He was not obviously he's not played as a right wing back.
No, exactly. Exactly. So I don't think he's suited perfectly to that position. But I think with a bit of coaching, he could be a good right back over time. So I wouldn't write him off. But for this season, I said it earlier, looking at alternatives, looking at Bergwijn potentially playing in that position. I know that when Conte brought in Kulusevski, he said that he could even play at right wing back, cutting in on the left. So, let's try it. I do think that is a weak spot for us. And if you've got that system that Conte's playing, you need good wing backs, because you haven't got a great deal going on in the middle of the park in terms of chance creation. So if you've got weak wing backs in that system, you're not going to do anything. And we're seeing it over these games that we've been losing. We aren't able to punish teams in the way that we should be, unless they're playing a really high line, and we can use the pace of Son and the creativity of Kane to break them, as we did of Man City. But you can't do that against teams like Burnley, Southampton, or Wolves. So I think we need an upgrade at right wing back, and I do think that Bergwijn could be a ready-made solution, or Kulusevski, or even Lucas Moura. But I wouldn't write off Emerson Royale. I think he could be a good player in the future, but he's not ready yet.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, let's come over to you. Talking about fullbacks and wing backs. Conte told Ryan Sessegnon that he believes he can be, a top class player. We saw it during the week in his press conference that he said that he needs to believe how good he can be. But again tonight, with Sessegnon, I think there's like a real lack of confidence there in him.
Yeah.
And do you know what it almost feels like with Sessegnon that I think he feels that he's out of his depth playing for Tottenham. And this is the biggest problem for me, that I think the club, they sometimes say the shirt is just too big on the player. That, honestly, for me, is what rings true about Ryan Sessegnon, that the weight of that shirt is pulling down on him. Because, I mean, tonight, where there was opportunities to run at his man, to hold back, he was hesitant to do so. And I think there's opportunities there he could have really opened Burnley up, but he just didn't seem to do so, Jay. Can you put your finger on as to why?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you started asking that question, I was kind of, trying to think of a response of why. And, confidence was the first thing that came to me as well. I mean, he we saw he's an incredibly talented player at Fulham, and he's a guy who's got great ability. But I think when you don't have that confidence, it just completely brings your level down. And, he's obviously had an incredibly difficult time. I mean, it's just crazy to think he's been here almost 3 years now, and he still feels almost like a new player. So, his confidence is going to be absolutely shot to bits. And unfortunately, when you don't have that confidence, you're going to really play within yourself. You're not going to, you're going to be overthinking everything, and that's just going to lead to kind of poor decision making. I think we're seeing that a lot with a couple of players this season. Some, for me, is personally one that is really struggling with confidence this year. I think if you look at a lot of the chances that he has now this season in games when he's, been through on goal, last season he would have just put it in the back of the net without thinking about it. This year, I think there's a lot of overthinking, and for me, that's just definitely the case with Ryan Sessegnon. Hugely talented player, but confidence has just seemed to be getting the better of him at the moment. And having been involved in sport myself and having been affected by confidence, I know it completely and utterly brings your level down, no matter how talented you can be. But it is such a frustrating thing. But yes, for me, it's definitely confidence, because I know he's a guy we all desperately wanted at Spurs. But it's just unfortunately, it's just confidence with him.
There you go, Rob. Thanks so much for the kind comments. Really appreciate it. Right, Jay, let's move on from you and let's go to Leon. Leon, Rodrigo Bentancur. I mean, listen, he slipped really awkwardly in that first half and practically did the splits. To be honest with you, I mean, he tried to run it off, but I mean, half time came, didn't come out for the second half, and I think I'll be honest with you, I went oh dear. When second half, I mean, again, I'm trying to be rational and honest here. That the minute I saw Bentancur not coming out for that second half and Harry Winks starting, my heart sank, because again, listen, Winks is a lovely guy, loves the football club, but you just felt with what we got left on that field, Bentancur is one of those players that's got the ability to create, even though he's more of a combative midfielder. Was you of the same worry, Leon?
Yeah, I would be. I think if he's out for a period of time, Bentancur, then that is not good news for us. He's been looking really bright since he came in. I know he's only played a few games, but from what you've seen, the way he uses his body to shield the ball, the way he's able to spot a pass in the way that some of our other midfielders aren't, I think he's a really important player for us. And it'll be interesting to see just how injured he is and how long he'll be out for if he is out. But yeah, as you say, I'm not sure we've got the depth really to cover for losing who is what looks like to be one of our best midfielders at the moment. I'm not sure, Winks and Harvey White and co are there yet either. And it's a worry if Bentancur goes. Obviously, we've got Skip to come back, very good player. But probably I'd like to see Skip and Bentancur together rather than one replacing the other. So yeah, I'm worried about that if it is a serious injury.
Yeah, I mean, Jake, coming over to you. Listen, Winks came on second half. I mean, listen, I'm good being honest. He didn't do too much wrong, Harry Winks, when he came on, but he just wasn't able to provide any of those telling balls that you need through to the attackers. And that's being honest. And again, listen, I'm not saying Bentancur is going to sit there and create all day long, but I don't know whether you had the same thing as me, that, again, when making that substitution, I think our job became 10 times even harder than it was at half-time, really, to break Burnley down. And don't you had the same feeling of that as well?
Yeah, well, that's the thing with only sort of having these not really having the depth and the options to bring them on. And I know, well, we haven't got a creative midfielder. I don't know how we haven't. I don't understand that. And a right wing back, I don't understand Paratici when he comes in, and he's bought Romero and he's helping Conte in. But it just seems a bit sort of chaotic. The club at the minute just all seems too chaotic. Sort of just going for, like, we've got this young Sarr, we've got Ryan Hill, we've got Emerson. But if you have a director of football, they need to be, I believe, they need to be strongly working with the manager, as the two of them have done together from the start. There was no point having Paratici come in to work with Nuno. That's no partnership, and it was clearly not a partnership. He was buying players in just to see if he managed to get anything out of them. So it's just left us in this mess where as soon as one player gets injured, as you say, whether Bentancur is out now, just as Skip comes back, and then Romero was out, Dyer was out. I think Romero's only up until he came back from injury, played 2 games under Conte.
Yeah.
There is just this chaos where it's injuries and it's just not quite having the depth. It's just, I hope these comments go away and we get the summer and he gets to actually put a team together, because what happens today is Bentancur slips, as you say, Winks comes on, and we'll go, well, we're basically, as you said, the highest praise you can say about Winks is he didn't do anything wrong. And that is really all you'll get from Winks, that he didn't do anything wrong. And that's the best you can hope for, which I feel awful saying, but that's the sort of options we've got. You look at the bench. And it's Bergwijn and Lucas. That could be exciting if they're able to come on and deliver. But in the middle, it's just we've got seem to have the same player again and again. And I love Bentancur. I think he's brilliant. Can't wait to see him and Skip together.
Yeah.
But we are going to basically be going, let's just hope those two stay fit. Otherwise, it is a bit of nothing when it comes on. Højbjerg, he does a job. Winks does a job, but that is it. There's no, as you say, there's not going to be those forward balls.
Yeah.
I know Højbjerg did do one against, but do you know what I mean? He sort of rescued the ball, but it's just not going to be anything.
Højbjerg is not the midfielder that you wanted playing tonight. It's just not that kind of guy that's going to be able to really
exactly.
So I think
and certainly if you do want to play like that, you only really want one of them on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We sort of keep ending up with 2 of them in the middle, sort of do it.
Yeah. And we're trying to break a team down that's got a bulk of 11 there. And very happy to do that. I mean, Perry on the screen says to me, how comes we played better in the second half then, Ricky, if the half-time subs were so bad? I just, honestly, do you know what, Perry? I think Conte put a rocket up them, being quite frankly. I think he reminded them that Spurs had just beaten Man City 4 days ago, a chance to get into the top 4. Wake up. Honestly, wake up. Because that first half performance was not good enough. And, could it have got any worse? And I'm being honest there. I mean, listen, this is not a critical session on Harry Winks, because we all know Harry's level. And I think no fan will say that Winksy isn't committed. He doesn't want to do his best for the team. But unfortunately, this is just about ability. And when you don't have your best players available, you're going to struggle. And, we're in a situation now where with Bentancur, we don't know, obviously, how bad that injury is. We'll obviously get some news ahead of the next press conference if Antonio Conte is still in charge. And again, just to remind people, the reason why we are saying that is, again, after the game tonight, Conte said that an assessment needs to be made over his future and the club's future. And that's all we've got at the moment. I mean, like I say, we discussed Conte's future in the first part of this show, where we obviously had the breaking news, that press conference. And obviously we'll get some more news, hopefully tomorrow, as to where things stand on the manager. But I mean, Højbjerg, we touched upon there, battled away in the centre of the park. Listen, I think he matched Burnley's fight and effort in terms of, what he had to bring to the table. But I mean, essentially on the night, what we needed was a creator, right? I mean, that's just being realistic as to what we needed. So, yeah, I mean, Dejan Kulusevski, coming over to you, Jay. Listen, I think he was one of those that did try very hard this evening. I think if you felt Spurs were going to create an opportunity, he would be one of the players you felt Spurs would have created. I mean, I would be honest and say, I think he was the most productive out of that front line for me personally. I don't know what you thought of his performance, Jay, overall.
I think he did okay tonight, for sure, and I do agree. He probably was our most productive player. The one thing that I would like to see him doing is probably playing more centrally. I think that I'm not quite sure he's best suited to being a winger, or certainly against. Again, we keep coming back to it, a team like Burnley, maybe against Man City when he is so great at carrying it, because there has been times when there is space and he can carry the ball forward. But I think against a team like Burnley, I would like to see him maybe playing more centrally. I think one thing that he does look very good at is kind of being a more creative player. So And having spoken to Juventus fans, he just never seemed to really perform particularly out wide for them, and was always better suited through the middle. I think when he was on loan at, I think Parma, he was on loan at. He always, when he played through the middle, he was a much better player. So I think we can see in the comments there, Steve Combo, he's saying that Kulo can play as a number 10. And I agree. So I agree. I think that's where he's best suited to. So that's where I'd like to see him play more often as a number 10 for sure.
Yeah. Leon, coming over to you. Harry Kane, he sent a header across the crossbar this evening. He showed glimpses of creativity to try and get Spurs going more in that second half. But, he was unable to reach anywhere near the level that he showed against City. Is this again tonight, Leon, where you need those leaders? We spoke about it on the Sunday show. You need your big players to step up on nights like tonight. You're going to go into a difficult place. You need like I've just said there, your warriors of the team to really put in a performance to show that, we're going to win, and we're going to obviously do anything we can to fight for that win. Did Kane do enough in your opinion tonight, Leon?
Well, he didn't, because we didn't win the game and he didn't score. So the answer is no. But we can't put it all on him. We can't always expect Harry Kane to bail us out, because number one, it's not fair, and number two, it's just not the way football works. And the issue we've got with Kane is that, yes, he's a world-class centre forward. He's also a world-class midfielder who can create. And I think we need two of those in the team at least, if not more. So that's the worry for me with the team. I think Kane had a great game against City. I don't want to be cynical and say that he had a great game against City because of what went on in the summer. But there might have been a bit of that at play. He's only human, and as Jamie was saying, the psychology of these things can impact you as an athlete. But I'm not blaming Kane. I thought he was all right. I thought he was decent. I thought he came close on a couple of occasions and created a few chances too. But the issue is that coming off the bench, if we had a Gareth Bale on the bench, maybe someone who's at Kane's level of quality to come on and impact the game in the way that we need, then I think we'd be in a better position. But we haven't got that.
No, I completely 100% agree with you. I really do. Jake, coming over to you to kind of summarise on the forwards. Heung-min Son struggled for quality tonight, struggled for real decent output to his performance. It was an off night for Son. It was a real off night for him. And again, on the back of that weekend display where he was phenomenal, it's again a night where he struggled with end product for Son. We've seen this again, quite often this season. As Mark says there, it's back to almost the pre-City form of Sonny. Can you put your finger on why we're getting these performances from Son?
No, I can't put my finger on it at all. I don't know. I don't know what's happened, but I think it's. And he has got Bergwijn. And, sometimes they do say that having a player to fight for your position will make you be better in that sort of competition. Maybe he doesn't quite feel that. Maybe he does need that. He does need to be dropped a bit. I said earlier, I think somebody in the comments didn't like it, but I said that maybe he should get dropped for Leeds and bring Bergwijn in. But I think somebody said I didn't know what I was talking about. But ultimately, I'm also trying to summarise how we lost to Burnley. So I don't think any of us really know what we're talking about. But anyway, I'm just saying, maybe try it because maybe he needs a rest. I didn't like he was injured, but I did remember thinking maybe it'd be a bit of a rest for him to be injured so he could come back, because he had to work hard for years without anyone really challenging him for his role, like Kane. Maybe it's that. Maybe it just needs. I don't know. I think it's a lot, like we were saying earlier at Tottenham. It's a sort of sports psychology thing. I think so. They need someone to come in and let them know that. And I thought Conte would be the one to let them know, believe in themselves that they can do this. Maybe it's bringing the other players around them. Going back to Kulusevski and the role that he plays. I remember when I can't remember how I found it, but when he first joined, I looked at comments when he'd chosen to go and play for Sarri over Conte. And I'd found the tweet here, and this is from the 1st of January 2020, and it said Kulusevski has preferred Juventus over Inter for the same reasons and above all tactical reasons. He thinks that Sarri's 4-3-1-2 suits him more than Antonio Conte's 3-5-2. So he previously chose to not play for Conte because he didn't want to play in that role. So that's
right. Yeah.
And to back up the point that he would probably be better not out there. But I think Conte, said this week, didn't he, that Paratici took him away from him because he knew that he wanted him, and he said, "No, that's football is tactical in that sense, off the pitch as much as on it." So he would probably be better in that number 10 role. He probably feels like he would be too. And we've got So there's just options there. I think we, as much as we don't have it in the creative midfield, we do have the option to drop some for Bergwijn. We do have Kulusevski to play as a number 10. There are options. There are things to play around with here to maybe be excited about. That maybe Conte just has to do a bit of work to create the creativity.
Yeah, no, I agree. Photomac, I think I said, Potomac asked me, Ricky, how was Son poor? Own it and present some facts. Well, I mean, I can only tell you from what I've seen with my own eyes, to be honest with you, Potomac, that based on the performance from Son tonight, a player that showed us the ability that he's got on the weekend against one of the best teams in arguably the world in Man City, that he can step up to that level. And then on a night against a side with Burnley that are struggling for relegation, where you need your big players to step up that are going to hopefully keep Spurs in the race for a top four. I don't think Son did enough tonight. And again, I don't think Kane did enough tonight. And I don't think, I don't think the group collectively did enough tonight. I don't want to single out one or two players. It's a collective effort tonight. As a group, this is what frustrates me about Tottenham, that it's actually terrible that as fans, we were expecting that tonight. It should not be like this. With a manager of Antonio Conte's level, with the squad they've actually got, for the experience we've got in that squad, when you look at collectively what they've all won with countries combined, we should not be going into this game and having any concern. And obviously Danny here says, Son's been poor for the last 4 or 5 games, Bar City. Pat there says there's been concerns about Son's form across the season. And I have to agree. Listen, I've been a massive Heung-min Son fan. I absolutely love Sonny. I've got no doubt that he loves playing for the football club. He obviously, stepped up massively at the beginning stage of the season when obviously Harry Kane was absent. But, like Lucky Spurs says here, Son had a lot of space against City. I agree, but also top players make their opportunities. Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi make their opportunities. And I know there's always been that running debate about Son. Is he world class? Well, for me, this is where there's that difference between what a world-class player is and what a very good player is. World-class players take themselves to that next level and make things happen. And listen, Son's a wonderful player. I love him at the football club. I hope he's got a massive future at Tottenham. He could well have easily walked away from Spurs. I'm well aware of that. He's shown massive loyalty to Spurs. But as a show, we always want to call it as we see it. And I don't think, hopefully I speak for a lot of Spurs fans tonight. I don't want to speak for people, but I think tonight's performance from Son, I think we'll all be a little bit concerned. It wasn't of a level of great nature where you can say Son stood out. Do you know what I mean, guys? I don't know if any of you agree with that.
For me personally, with Heung-min Son, I think I said it a little bit earlier, I just think it's all down to confidence with him at the moment. I think when last season, when he was, there were so many times when he was throwing goal and he would, easily put it in the back of the net and he would, some ridiculous finishes. But this year, again, it's just kind of like he's overthinking a lot of it. And sometimes you do that as a player. You kind of go in and out of confidence. Again, it's a player we all know is exceptionally a talented player. But I think at the moment, it's his confidence that's kind of hindering him a little bit. And unfortunately, he's gone through a little patch. He's going through a patch at the moment where he's not at that level of confidence. Last year, we saw him bail us out so many times. Even in this fixture, we saw him bail us out. He obviously he scored the goal to win us the game. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think he's a player who's kind of really short of confidence. But look at the situation that he finds himself in this year. It's been a really horrible season, of course, so many ups and downs, and I think that's certainly affected him just to be part of that situation. Then, of course, when the players in and around him aren't performing either, I think that's always very difficult as well. So, I definitely don't doubt Son's ability. I think for me, personally, Son is a world-class player on his day, but right now, I think he's just going through a spell where he's very just short of confidence, and a lot of players around him aren't able to step up. I mean, that's the thing as well. There's only 2 players in that team that you kind of expect to score goals, and that's the real issue for us. Liverpool are a real top side. They're the level we want to get to eventually. They've got multiple players in their team that are able to get goals. I mean, even I think, what did their centre-back score 3 tonight? I mean, Matip scored 1, Van Dijk scored 1. You've got players all in that team that are able to do constantly for Spurs. It's always, we're having to rely on Heung-min Son and Harry Kane, and that in itself is obviously mentally draining for those two as well. Constantly have that pressure on them of having to drag us over the line. So Unfortunately, I think we've just been too reliant on Son. We've been, as I said, he's going through a very bad spell of confidence for himself at the moment.
Yeah, just to be clear, again, I will say it's not digging out Heung-min personally. Tonight's a collective effort. You know, everybody has got to take some collective. Well, they've got to take collective blame for tonight. You know, it's not just one player. Kane not good enough. You know, as a squad, you know, you want more, you expect more. Leon, I know you wanted to come in there. Sorry.
You know, I was going to say the thing that's worrying me about this run of games where we've lost is that under Mourinho, the football was awful, but you could rely on Kane and Son almost like clockwork, because you know that they would score, and he did get them playing together. And I think Conte hasn't got that yet. You know, Son and Kane haven't clicked this season in the way they did last season, and I think that's what's missing. If we had those two on last season's form, I reckon we'd have picked up those points that we've lost and salvaged at least a couple of draws. Because they would have got on the score sheet, and you know I think that is what's worrying me. I'm not sure we've improved enough on Mourinho, and he was the football player was awful, but we did have two strikers who could consistently score goals, and that's what's missing this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. Leon, I think it's hard to disagree. I mean, again, just to kind of just summarise it, Lucas really, when he came on, again, another player, you expect a lot from Lucas. He's been off the ball the last few games, really struggling to make an impact. Bergwijn came on, he had one shot inside the box that Pope held well. Again, I just, to summarise on this game, simply as a squad, as a team, collectively, not good enough. And I think that's all you can say on tonight. You know, it's a game where as fans, you go to Burnley away that, again, are fighting relegation. You've just come off the back of City where you've got a chance of fighting for that top four. And again, we let ourselves down. And I mean, listen, it is frustrating. But I think we're going to close that chapter there on Burnley before it kills us, to be honest with you. I mean, we've taken these guys past midnight. So what we're going to do, I want to say it's going to get easier.
That was yesterday.
I want to say it's going to get easier. We are going to go for our final break of the show. And then we have to have a brief 5-minute look towards Leeds United. I'm so sorry, guys. For our watching audience, for our listeners on audio, we've got a Leeds podcast that's very kindly given us his thoughts. Now, I want to tell you, there's probably a Leeds fan that probably feels worse than us out there at the moment. They've been tonked 6-0 tonight by Liverpool. So who else better to face next than Dr. Tottenham? And I say that chuckling because, listen, we go into this fixture with our managers, we go with our managers' future up in the air, to be quite frankly. Again, as we obviously have gone past midnight here, we'll know today where we are with Antonio Conte in terms of his future. Fingers crossed, listen, hopefully he's still the Spurs head coach. And I think emotionally, this has been a challenging time for us all as Spurs fans. And for a manager, I want to say he needs to get used to this because this is Spurs, unfortunately, and it doesn't get any easier. But Leeds are on a terrible run of form. They've just lost 6-0. So as I joke and say, who better to play next? It's Spurs. Jake, let's come over to you. What are we in for these next 24 to 48 hours? Do we have a manager for this game, Jake?
I mean, that I don't know. What? As I said, this season seems to be we get a little bit high, we get a low, and it seems to be repeating itself. And this feels like the Man United game again, where it's two teams sort of struggling and we just go, which one's going to come out worse?
Oh, God.
It feels like we're in the same position, but at least last time was up against Man United. This time it's us and Leeds figuring out who's going to do it. So it's somehow ended up in a worse position. Think of it, it'd be interesting to hear. Now, obviously, the listener will now know what the Leeds fan thought, so already this will seem out of date. But maybe they're thinking that it's a scary time to play Tottenham because we've now got a point to prove. Conte's spoken out. Maybe I'm just trying to give us some fight that's not really there. It's always nice just to imagine what the other team's going through.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't want to play us. I think maybe we should all agree not to bother playing the game.
Try and get this one called off.
This one just for our mental well-being.
I'll tell you, try and get this one called off. I mean, Heisenberg on the screen there says Leeds haven't won in the region of 20 games. That's where Tottenham comes in. We will try and find out what Leeds' current run of form is. It's not pretty on the eye. But, I mean, coming over to you, Jay, let's come over to you with regards to Leeds. We know they're going to be likely to be missing Patrick Bamford, Calvin Phillips, Charlie Cresswell. They won't be able to feature. I mean, they're quite prominent players for Leeds. How How do you see this one going, Jay?
Do you know what? I do feel I actually feel weirdly confident. I do feel weirdly confident about this one. I said that just because I think the way that Leeds do set up, I think that will set it. That will kind of play into our hands. I think they've conceded 16 goals in the last 4 matches, so obviously averaging fantastic match there. I think averaging 4 goals every game. So I think they're a side that definitely can be got at. I think when there'll be more space, I think as we've discussed, I think Spurs are better suited to that. So I actually do have a good feeling for this game. I think as Rob C says there in the comments, I think that's going to be right. I think it'll be like a basketball score. I think it'll be exactly like that. I think Leeds matches are always like that. We saw that on the weekend. But I do kind of feel confident this one. And again, that's, just on Conte, I do think that, yes, his comments are maybe pretty scary, but honestly, I just don't. I don't think at the moment there's something to particularly worry about. I mean, look, I've been in a couple of group chats and everyone's saying almost exactly the same as he is. He's speaking as a football fan. He's speaking as a guy, as any football fan would. So,
do we need that though, Jay? I mean, being honest with you, listen, we all love Conte. We all love him, but yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking Tottenham as a football club. We're already, we're already nuts as it is. Do we need the manager to be like that as well? Does it suit us?
Yeah, no, as I said, it's not what we want. It's we don't want to hear that. We want to hear our manager coming out and showing that he's ready to fight. But that's what you get.
I just wonder what the players are thinking. The players back on the coach when they're seeing that, they're seeing those words.
Maybe, but I think there will also be the case that he says that out loud, but I think behind closed doors he'll say, it'll be something. It'll be a different message. I mean, look, on the weekend I just remember on the weekend he was saying, I found a fantastic group of players here. Maybe the best group of players that I've found in my time, because they're players that are willing to learn. So he's a manager. You're just going to have to, at times, always going to feel like he's wanting to leave. I think I've just seen a tweet on Twitter from a Juventus fan who shows a picture from Chelsea, Inter Milan, Juventus, and now Spurs. He's always a manager that looks like he's on the edge of leaving. So
yeah,
I don't think I think you're just going to have to accept that with Conte. I think that's just the way he's going to be as a manager in press conferences. But no, I think on the weekend I can see us responding with a win. I just think that the way Leeds are, will be better suited to playing against a team like that. So I'm confident.
It's funny
to keep his hair on.
Well, it's funny, yeah. I mean, the comments coming in here, coming over to you, Leon. It's listen. There's no denying that. Listen, we need Conte. We want Conte to stay, but you feel like almost at this time now, what you want is someone to be just kind of rational and just calm us all down and tell us that we're all going to be okay, right? I mean, this is what we need right now. When you're I think lots of people are saying that they're dreading waking up tomorrow morning, or for those listening to the pod, you're obviously listening to this now, dreading what they're going to hear in the next few hours with regards to maybe a club statement coming from Tottenham. Can you give us reassurance? You personally, do you think, again, he's just very emotional from what he's watched tonight?
Yeah, well, first of all, speaking as a bald man myself, I have to say I'm enjoying Conte now wears a cap whenever it rains so that you can't see the hair transplant. But anyway, enough of that. Look, I think everyone's saying he's speaking like a football fan, which is good in a way, because we're all football fans and we get the emotion. He's paid £15 million a year. Or whatever it is, to lead that team, and we aren't. So yeah, that's the difference. And I do think if you're in any workplace and your boss is slightly irrational and a bit erratic, it doesn't give you confidence. I think the players need confidence from him. So I have to say, as those comments have sort of sunk in throughout talking with you guys on this podcast, I do feel a little bit aggrieved that he's gone down that line. I don't think it's good for the players' mentality right now. Whether or not he's trying to make a point to the club, whatever it might be, perhaps he is. But I think there are better ways to go about it. So yeah, I've got an issue with that. Having reflected on it, but he's a world-class manager. We can't get away from it, and I think he probably is above Spurs' status right now, and he was appointed with the aim of getting us to his getting us to his quality. So I think we've got to do all we can to keep him. I'd like to see him backed. I'd like to see whatever he wants from the board given to him, because I think it's essential that we utilise him while he's here. But I'd like to have seen a bit more stability from him. I don't think those comments are helpful.
Jake, let's come over to you. I must apologise tonight. We had about over 70, 80 questions come in, and I'm going to be honest and say to you that obviously the Conte press conference kind of threw this show into a completely different direction, which I hate to say seems to be a regular running theme this season on Last Word on Spurs. Just when you think you're going to record a normal show, Tottenham Hotspur turn up and turn the script upside down, back to front, which is why these shows now are bordering on 5 hours long, which I'm only joking. We're not really doing these guys for 5 hours because it would kill them. But I mean, and me. But generally, Jake, when you look at where we are right now going into this Leeds game, are we in the right frame of mind? I mean, Leeds are in a situation where they are fighting for their lives. So as much as Jay's got the confidence there, do you have the confidence? Because Leeds, I think, will turn up. And although they've been given a massive beating tonight by Liverpool, they're going to want to prove a point. And, Bielsa sides, they do offer the opportunity to have a lot of space across the pitch, which may suit Tottenham. What's your thoughts going into this one, Jake?
I think on a positive note, as much as we're going to think mentality-wise, the mentality is not going to be there. The argument for that would be we just beaten City 4 days ago. The mentality should have been there to go on and beat Burnley. As soon as the game starts, it's its own game, it's its own beast. Oh, sorry, Mike. That can't be a real name, surely. Mike Hunt.
Might be. I don't know.
Shouldn't have said that out loud.
Listen, Mike, don't worry. We're all good. We're all good.
This podcast has to be marked as explicit.
We're after the watershed now, Jake. Don't worry. We're okay.
So if people listen to this on their way to work, don't need that sort of language on your commute. So the mentality-wise, pick up, you go. Oh, sorry.
Mike has confirmed it is Mike Hunt, just to confirm. At least we can find some laughter after nearly 2 hours. God, this show.
Well, I mean, if that could be a real name, anything can happen. So that's my prediction. Anything can happen. My
God. Right. Guys, for the sake of everybody, let's try and close the show. Jay, I'm going to ask 2 questions actually to everybody. Firstly, Jamie, will Antonio Conte, we'll do this first one, then we'll come on to the prediction. Jamie, will Antonio Conte be in charge in that dugout for Leeds?
Definitely.
Okay. Leon, same question to you. Will Conte be in that dugout?
I think he'll be there. I think he'll be there with his cap on, and hopefully 3 points as well.
Okay, and Jake, finally, will Conte be in the dugout?
No, he won't be in the dugout. He'll be on the sideline shouting for the full 90 minutes to make sure that they don't make the same mistake again.
Oh, I love that. I want to agree, guys. I honestly feel, again tonight, it's just highly emotional. It's unfortunately what he's managing Tottenham, and again, I think he's caught the Tottenham bug, right? I mean, we've had it as fans for years, and I think unfortunately he's going to need to get used to that for this season. And I think as fans, we maybe need to have a reality check. That top 4, I think many have already accepted that maybe isn't going to be a possibility. And we just have to ride the season out. I mean, I know it sounds really depressing because you look at the table and you still think, God, it's still alive. But I mean, the erratic nature of Tottenham, up and down every week, any club that's going to be doing the results that we're having at the moment, I mean, you're going to be able to say it's going to be very difficult for top 4. I think we all agree, we all want Conte to be here. He's the right man. I think, there'll be some words in the morning from the ball, just in the way, obviously, it's hard, isn't it? Because I know I keep saying I'm going to end the show, but with Conte, I just think Daniel Levy on the ball want to be saying to him, look, you've got to be a bit more rational. But this is the hard thing. This is who he is. I don't think you can take that out of him because then you don't get the celebration. So I don't know. Can you rein it, Leon? Can you ask him to rein it in, or is that just him as a character?
Well, I think you can ask him to rein it in. He'll probably tell you where to go.
That's what I'm worried about.
But I mean, look, he's a professional. This is the elite level of sport. He's paid a lot of money to do his job. He's got to be professional. And look, but then again, Levy and Paratici knew what they were getting into when they appointed him. He's left all of his jobs pretty much on bad terms. So inevitably, when he does leave Spurs, hopefully not this soon, but inevitably when he does leave Spurs, it won't be on good terms because it never is with Conte. So I think you're right, Ricky. It's part of who he is, but in my opinion, in my view, I think he should be a bit more professional, show a bit more leadership.
Yeah, guys, right.
Sorry, just to look at. Yeah. I'm just looking at some results. I think this is over the 17-18 season that he was at Chelsea.
Yep.
I think this is just to check. This is right. He lost. These are 4 results in one season.
Yep.
He lost 3-2 to Burnley. He lost 4-1 to Watford. He lost 3-1 to us, and he lost 3-0 to Newcastle. And you could say that they're up there with the 4 games he's lost. That he's had tough games with us this season. He's done it before. You know, it's not alien for him to go and lose games that he should win. So, I mean, that's 4 games you could equate to the 4 that we've gone through with him: Chelsea, Southampton, Wolves, and now Burnley.
Yeah,
you know, it's happened for him before. He's lost games that he should have won badly. I mean, 4-1 to Watford, 3-0 to Newcastle, 3-1 to us. Chelsea wouldn't have been happy with that.
No. I think
I think
the difference though is that, I mean, at Spurs is that I think that he's already got. I mean, I said earlier, this real bond between us as fans now that we're almost terrified per every game if he's going to be here or not. And you can't have a. I don't think, even the Spurs, we laugh and joke, and we are, as fans, we're emotional. We can't be having a relationship with a manager that we're terrified every game going into it. We're going to lose the manager. We can't be dealing with that situation. So, yeah, I think as fans, we're going to have to keep our emotions in check somehow. And again, as a manager, he also is going to have to do that because the nature of Spurs Twitter alone, I mean, it's just, as we all know, it's chaotic on there. So, yeah, we shall see on Conte. Let's get the predictions for Leeds, and then we'll let these guys get back to some normality of life. Because I know Jamie's face there, he blinked and he was like, "Yeah, we're still here." Let's quickly get predictions. Let's start with you, Jay. What are you going to go for?
I was just thinking of. I do expect a very crazy match. I was just thinking of a crazy prediction. I think it will be. No, I'm going to go for 3-1 to Spurs. I think it will be a very high scoring match. I do think we'll get the job done. As I said, I do fancy our chances against a side like Leeds, and I think Calvin Phillips is a huge miss for them, and I think that's why they are really struggling at the moment, because he just, he's a guy that absolutely loves that club. He gives 100% all the time, and of course his quality is just kind of really, really, really high. So yeah, I think him being a big miss, but yeah, I'm going to go for 3-1 to Spurs.
And you might have just saw that the lights just went out on me then. Not sure what's quite happening here in the background. Nearly I'm getting turned off in here. So this obviously is not a good thing. We do need to wrap this up. Let's go to Jake next. Jake, what are we going for?
2-0.
2-0 Spurs.
Win.
2-0 to Spurs, right? Just to confirm.
Yeah.
Nothing surprised me the way this show goes, I tell you. Leon, to close it with you, what are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for a high scoring draw. I reckon something like a 2-2. We might even nick it, in the last minute. But I think the only thing in our favour is that I've spoken about Conte being rigid and inflexible. I think Bielsa is just the same. He's going to play in the way he does, and we play well against teams who press and who have a high line, and that could well work for us. So yeah, I reckon 2-2, 3-2. Either way, it'll be entertaining.
Amazing. Guys, thank you ever so much. Just very quickly, Jane has come over you just very quickly. I know you're doing a lot of these Twitch preview shows. Now, where can people find the content? Let us know.
Yeah, thank you, Ricky. Basically before the matches, I've started doing kind of like a live stream just before, kind of looking ahead to team news and kind of then reacting to it as well. I've really enjoyed it so far. So kind of just before every match, maybe just before the team news comes out, I go live on Twitch. So yeah, Daily Hotspur on Twitch. So if you're around, I'll probably be doing the Leeds match. So yeah, if you want to join, then I'll be starting at about 11:30ish. I think.
There you go. Make sure you check that out. Obviously, that's a great shows on there. Jake, any gigs we should know about coming up? What's coming up?
No, the next place I'm going to be in about 20 seconds is in the toilet having a wee. I'm absolutely desperate. I'm bouncing around. And last time I was on this, I went with.
We know about last time. Yeah, we're not doing the live edition now. I promise you, Jake. But obviously, everyone, where can it go, Jake?
Yeah, on my website for all the gigs, check lambbertcomedy.com. Currently on tour with Jack D. So if you like Jack D and me, or just Jack, come along.
Fantastic. Lovely to have you back on, Jake. Always a pleasure.
Leon, thank you for having me.
Oh, listen, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Leon, lovely to have you back on, mate. Always enjoy your level-headedness in what's always been a crazy, chaotic summer. You've come on about Spurs. When is it not crazy and chaotic? Where can people find you on social media and your links, Leon?
Yeah, well, I've got nothing exciting to promote, but you can find me, Leon Emiralli, on Twitter, and always happy to have Spurs followers and to chat about all things Spurs.
Amazing. Real pleasure. Guys, we look forward to having you all on again throughout the season. I must say thank you ever so much to all of the comments tonight. Jake is busting to go for a wee, so we must excuse Jake. We have to. But listen, thank you so much for all the comments, the super chats, the kind messages. Listen, always a difficult night when Spurs don't win. Jake, you are permitted to go.
Thank you very much.
No
See you
problem at
next
all.
time.
I was like, lovely to have you, Jake. Thank you so much for all your support. We are back with you on Sunday evening for Spurs reaction to Leeds United. If hopefully Conte is still here, we have a game to review, of course. But again, thank you so much for all your comments, guys. Please keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on, you Spurs.